Hi, this is Kim Droptiny. I'm on chapter 35 of Gold Cord by Amy Carmichael, and this is the prelude to chapter 35. Oh, bring them home. What though their faint desire falter and fail before the piercing sword, or in the wind, or earthquake, or in fire? Come to them, conquering Lord. Or in the sound of gentle stillness, come. Comforter, come. Let thought of us be far, not ours the light that leads them safely home, not of us sun or star. Dear Lord of love, so boundless and so deep, that all thy heart could yearn for us, accursed. O Lord of love, great shepherd of the sheep, give unto us thy thirst. Chapter 35, Sadhu and Tiger. From this time forward, we were led out in new ways. Does the green valley always open upon fields which turn into fields of battle? Sometimes among prisoners, sometimes in remote villages, sometimes in the temple towns that stand like little forts under the western hills. Sometimes at festivals, different times of our fellowship have had the joy of the soldier on service. And no one who knows what that can be of divine companionship would exchange it for any other joy. Which of the untold tales will show us least, and the Lord the doer most? We have asked ourselves the question as we traveled from point to point over this lately trodden ground. And the story of the Sadhu, who was called by his name, though he had not heard of him, comes to mind. Far in the forests that climb the mountains lived a sadhu with other sadhus, one of a company of followers of a noted guru who had many disciples all over the south. The sadhus come to the plains, wander from place to place, and return for meditation to their caves on the hill called Mountain of the Great King. Among them was one who was so devout in all his ways and so ardent in his fasts and austerities that the Guru called him to his feet and said, "Thou art a God lover, and among the greater gods is one of whom I have heard called Yesu. I shall call thee Yesu Nisan, lover of Yesu." He did not hear the name Yesu again until he met Marut, a lately converted herb doctor, who taught him a few sentences of a prayer, which he thought of as a charm. It was to the father of Yesu, who was also called our Father. So his perplexed ears heard, and it began like this: Thou who art in the heavenly world, our Father, thy name may it be hallowed. He said the curious sentence over and over, using his Savit rosary with its 108 berries, mixing the new prayer with the Sanskrit prayers and charms which he had already learned. One day, the quiet of the forest was broken by the big, hearty laugh of a man in a cave. And lover of Yesu, surprised, went into the cave and made friends with the man who laughed and sang and shouted like a free man, regardless of who might hear. And yet he was not free. He was being hunted. A foolish man, thought lover of Yesu, when he knew him better. Disconcerting and hard to take care of, for he left his tracks uncovered in a queer, casual way. This man, Raj, taught the sadhu, reading to him from a little book which he carried in a goatskin bag. And the sadhu began to understand, and, being in earnest to attain this new knowledge, he decided on a 41 days fast. Sitting in the cramped position ordained for meditation, he fasted till he fell into a trance. But him I never saw. It was darkness within. He came out of that fast and that trance with shaken views about various matters. For example, he did not now feel it a sin to take life, and he wanted a tiger skin. Sadhus sit on deerskin or tiger skin, but they never dream of shooting deer or tiger themselves. So Lover of Yesu went off to stalk a tiger. He had been a hunter in his youth, but he was not a good shot now. He wounded the tiger, which rushed upon him and got his arm and shoulder between its teeth. I knew in that moment, I cannot tell how, but I knew that no one but the Lord Yesu, of whom Raj had told me, could save me from the tiger, and to him I cried. Then somehow he got his arm free around the beast and shot it. While he was being healed of his wounds, we were brought into touch with him, and he read the Gospel of St. John. Then he came to stay with us, and our hopes kindled. What might he not do for his Lord? But the wanderlust, that fatal wanderlust of the Sadhu, would not let him stay long enough to be taught. He would float off without a word. He was there an hour ago. We looked, and he was not there. Then tales drifted across the plains of a strange Sadhu, a lover of Christ, who had been heard speaking of him in the mighty temples of the south, in whose innermost halls he had sat, and whose priests were his friends. And we heard of him on the mountains among the ascetics, steadfastly holding out against their allurements, for they tried with every art they knew to draw him back. Then a tale came of his being worshipped as a god and garlanded with flowers. But this was not in Ceylon. How could he be there? He was there. You must buy ticket. I can go in any train without a ticket, he had told us. And we knew, of course, that he could. For train, motor bus, bull cart, even steamship seemed to feel alike about holy men. But this talk of the garland of flowers? It was true, too. He had prayed for the recovery of a child. It had been granted. The people had wanted to worship him, and they had run to him with flowers, and he had fled. He was at a festival now, near one of our sacred waterfalls, and the money they had poured into his hands he had used to give a feast to some Christian boys who had gone to see the waterfall. He witnessed to his Savior everywhere and showed to all who would look the marks of the tiger's teeth on his arm. But those same marks seem to confuse his judgment where baptism is in question. Or it may be that his many fasts and rigorous austerities have clouded him a little so that he cannot understand. Nay, what need is there for that? Have I not this? And he touches one of those white scars. Or he will say, am I not just now going to enter a period of fasting? I cannot stay for that yet. And his mind, as wandering as his feet, moves him to restlessness. So this is only the first chapter of his story. I have told it partly with a hope that it may lead the thoughts of the reader beyond the figurative figure of Lover of Yesu to those other wanderers, the sadhus of Indian, for some of whom a true conversion would mean indeed the piercing of a sword. That's the end of chapter 35. That was kind of a short one. I'll see you again in chapter 36, and God bless you and thank you for listening.